Shalom Aleichem and welcome everyone as we are preparing for Shabbat, Parashat Noach. In this week's Parasha, we learn Ele Toledot Noach, Noach ish tzaddik. These are the children of Noach. Noach was a tzaddik. You would think that it would say Ele Toledot Noach. These are the children of Noach, and these are children. This is the names of Noach's children. But instead, it says Ele Toledot Noach, Noach ish tzaddik. These are the children of Noach. Noach is a tzaddik. There was a certain woman who wrote in her will that she wanted, when she would die, she wanted to be buried with her Mercedes. She really enjoyed her Mercedes. And she wrote in her will that when she died, she wanted to be buried with her Mercedes. Obviously, that didn't really happen for her. But that was her machshav, that's her thought, that she wanted. We have on the other side, the Manchester Rosh Yeshiva, when he requested that he be buried with the Shmirat HaLashon calendar that he instituted. Something that he made, he wanted to be buried with it.
I'm listening from here, by the way.
Sure. There was a Chashuv Yid, a very holy Jew, who told his children that he wanted to be buried with his Chumash Rashi. He wanted to be buried with his Chumash Rashi that he learned from. He said, I always learned so much Chumash Rashi, that's what I want to be buried with. People will have an idea that they want to go to the next world with something that they did in this world. We know that every one of us will not be able to take our material wealth and stuff like that with us to the next world. And we see it from this week's parasha. It says, Ele Toledot Noach, this is the children, this is the offspring. Right? As Rashi says, the main offspring, the main creations, the main thing a person makes in this world, shel tzadikim, of tzadikim, ma'asim tovim, are the good deeds that they make. The only thing that we're going to be able to take with us into the next world is the good stuff that we do in this world. It's reported in the Gemara that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was crying when he saw certain people do certain mitzvot, and he said, Yesh koneh olamo b'sha'ah achat. There are some people who acquire olam haba in 1 hour. That means there are certain mitzvot. What does that mean, person acquires it in 1 hour? It means a person knows the value of time, person knows the value of what the olam hazeh is, and he spends that time doing those mitzvot so he gets into olam haba. It's reported that the Vilna Gaon was crying at the end of his life, and his student said, Rabbi, what are you crying about? You're the biggest Gaon, biggest tzaddik. What are you worried about the next world? He says, I'm not worried about dying. What I'm worried about, what I'm crying about, is the fact that on this world, a person can fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzit. How much it costs already to buy a kosher tzitzit? And he can wear it, and every second he has a mitzvah. You don't have that in the next world. The ikar todotehem, the main creations that we have is on this world. Is that what we take with us to the next world? Is ma'asim tovim. As the Mishnah in Vot says, Yafa sha'a b'tshuva ma'asim tovim ba'olam hazeh. How great is just a little bit of time that a person has doing tshuva ma'asim tovim in this world. Something that you don't have the opportunity in the next world. We know, it's been told, it's been said, it's been talked about, that this world is like Erev Shabbat. It's like a Friday, right? And Olam Haba is Shabbat. You got to prepare well on Friday and Thursday, throughout the whole week, in order to get into Shabbat and have everything that you need. And this is what we see in the Pasuk, where it says that Ele Toledot Noach, these are the creations of Noach, these are the children, the offspring of Noach. Noach ish tzaddik, which means he has ma'asim tovim. There's a story that's told, a very rich man, he passed away, and he had a huge amount of money that was going to go to his children, and he wrote a will. He wrote 2 wills. And in the first will, he said, you have to open up this will when I die, and the second will you're going to open up after Shiva. And so as soon as he died, they opened the will, and in the will it says, in his tzava it says, that I have a lot of money and I'm going to give it to all my children, millions of dollars. But in order to get this millions of dollars, you have to bury me with my socks on. I only bury with my socks on. And so the family tried to do it, and the Chaver Kedusha said, "I'm sorry, Chaver Kedusha said it's not happening. We can't bury someone with their socks on." They said, "But listen, we're going to lose out. It's a Hefsid Meruba. It's going to be a big loss." They said, "No doing. They're not going to bury the deceased with socks." And having no choice, they buried their father without socks on. And the children were really upset. They lost out a lot of money. And after the Shiva, they opened up the second will. And in the second tzava, in the second will, the father wrote that he asked to be buried in socks so the children can see that you cannot even take a pair of socks with you to the next world. No matter how much money you have, you can't take any of it into the next world. The only thing you can take with you to the next world is your ma'asim tovim, is the good deeds, the mitzvot, the Torah that a person does, person learns. Those are the only things you can take with you to the next world. And once that they learned this lesson, that the main thing is your ma'asim tovim, then they would be also getting their dollars, their money, the inheritance that they were entitled to. Another story that's told is how a man from America, a wealthy man, decided he was going to donate some money to yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael. And he found a certain yeshiva, and he called the Rosh Yeshiva, and he told Rosh Yeshiva he wants to donate money. Rosh Yeshiva was very excited. Good news. Finally he's going to have some money for the yeshiva. And then this American man said, "Listen, but I want to learn with the Rosh Yeshiva every morning. In Israel time, morning 4 a.m., and in the U.S. time 9 p.m. I want to learn Daf Yomi every day with the Rosh Yeshiva." The Rosh Yeshiva's like, "I don't know you really, you just first time spoke." He said, "Listen, that's the deal. Learn with me, and I'll give you a generous donation to the yeshiva." And so it was. And they learned every morning. And it's show time, morning time. Here in the U.S. it was evening time. And they learned and they learned and they learned. They learned for about a year. And one day he doesn't call. And later on in the day, Rosh Yeshiva gets a phone call that the man he was learning with in America passed away. His wife called, this man's wife, and she told the Rosh Yeshiva that we want to bury him in Eretz Yisrael. Can you please arrange for the whole process? He said, of course. They flew the body out there at Yisrael. They made the whole levaya. They made the speeches, everything, and they went to do the kfura, went to do the burial, and they buried this man into the ground. And as everyone's finished the burial, the Rosh Yeshiva is looking for his phone, and he can't find his cell phone. So he asks one of the people nearby to call him. He calls, and he sees that the phone was ringing inside the place where they buried this man from America. And the Rosh Yeshiva announced, he said, "Rabotai, the very phone that was used to study Daf Yomi with this rich man from America every day is now on its way with him to the next world, to be a defender for him, to show how he was Machshev Torah." And so I think from here, from these few stories that we saw, and the explanation and how we understand Noach Ish Tzaddik, because that's it. That's the creation the person really has. What he has is the ability to do Torah, Mitzvot, Ma'asim Tovim. That's what he's taking with him to the next world. That is his main goal in life. The person should realize that, cry about that here, how much opportunity he has now to do something for the next world. But I saw another beautiful explanation, what it means. That when it says, Ela toladot Noach ish tzaddik, I saw an explanation that says, as Rashi says, Davar acher, l'lamdecha, to teach you, she'ikar tolotehem, that their main offspring, shel tzaddikim, their main action, their main creation, shel tzaddikim, ma'asim tovim, is their good deeds. But in this way of explaining it, the Skolya Rebbe adds that what it means, Ikar Tolotahem Shel Tzadikim, the main creations of a tzaddik is Ma'asim Tovim. Ma'asim meaning the good stories that you learn about the tzaddik. That is the main thing about tzaddikim, is learning their Ma'asim Tovim. Learning their good stories. What it means? There's two ways you hear a story. There's one story you hear, you say, wow, what a good story. Very nice. Then there's the real way you're supposed to hear a story, which is when you hear the story, you hear Ma'asim Tovim. You hear the good story, and then you do Ma'asim Tovim. And then you do good deeds. Meaning you're learning from the tzaddikim how to be great, how to do great things. Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer was already in his 70s when Rav Aryeh Levin, the tzaddik of Yerushalayim, came to give a speech, came to give a shiur. And in his shiur, he spoke about Shalom Bayit. A person has to be at home. And he told people they have to work in this topic of Shalom Bayit, and they have to make sure that they do it, that they're better at home, better relationship with their spouses. And he gave a dirasha for an hour or so. And after the dirasha, Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer, already a man in his 70s, a tzaddik on his own right, walks over to Aryeh Levin, Rav Aryeh Levin, and tells Rav Aryeh Levin, thank you so much for this hizuk, for this inspiration, for these teachings. As soon as I get home today, I'm already going to put it into practice. Rav Aryeh Levin was speaking to the whole shul. He was not speaking to Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer. Rav Zalman Meltzer was a tzaddik. But Rav Isser Zalman Meltzer listened to the speech. He didn't just stop and listen to it and say, oh, very nice, talking to that guy, he's talking to him, he's talking to him. He heard the speech. Who is he talking to? He's talking to me. I'm going to do Ma'asim Tovim. You hear a good story, you hear a good explanation, you have to take that and apply that into your life. As it's Cheshvan, right, tonight's already the second of Cheshvan, Mar Cheshvan. It starts the rainy season in Eretz Yisrael. It should be a good rainy season for them. And we know that the Maran, Chacham Ovadia Yosef Rishon LeZion, was nifter on, if I believe it's right, it's Gimel of Cheshvan. So it will be tonight's 2, so tomorrow night, so Shabbat. All of Shabbat's going to be the day that he was nifter. And so I want to just bring down a few stories. We just said if you learn stories, the main thing of tzaddikim is learning the stories. Let's talk about 2 stories, Chacham Ovadia, Tzaddik L'Bracha, and how we can apply those to our lives. The first story I remember reading a little bit after he was nifter. There was a story that they said that when Chacham Ovadia was still a young man and he's learning in the Kollel, there was a couple of youngsters in the area that knew him to be a big, very big into mitzvot, Ma'asim Tovim, Torah learning, so decided to have some fun with him. So a couple of teenagers saw Chacham Ovadia Yosef walking down the block, and they stopped him and they said, listen, Chacham, we're expert tailors, and we see that your suit has shatnez. And Chacham Ovadia said, really? And they said, yes, we can just tell by the material. Immediately, Chacham Ovadia, in the middle of the street, started taking off his jacket. And then he started to take off his pants. He said, how can I wear shatnez? So then the guys saw that he was taking off his suit. In the public, they said, no, Chacham, we were just joking. And Chacham Ovadia had a hard time believing them that they were joking. He said, if it's an Avirah, I cannot have it on for 1 second. If you know something is right, you know something is wrong, you do it right away. That was Chacham Ovadia. Someone told him that his suit was shatnez. That's it. He's taking it off. He doesn't care where he is. He can't wear it. Another famous story that they say of Chacham Ovadia is that nearby the shul where Maran Rishon LeZion would pray, there was a 15-year-old boy who grew up on the streets. He was a troubled boy. And they played soccer right in front of the shul on Shabbat. And one Shabbat, as the Chacham Ovadia was walking out of shul, they were playing soccer, and they threw the ball, and they kicked the ball, and it hit Chacham Ovadia's hat, and it flew off, and it flew on the ground. Chacham Ovadia walked over to get his hat, and he saw these young boys playing, and he said Shabbat Shalom to them. And this boy, and they call him Eli, he wanted to mess around with the rabbi. So he said to him, so Chacham Ovadia asked him, "Where's your parents?" And the kid says they're dead. So the boy says, "Listen, Chacham, what do you want? Leave us alone, or you're going to make kiddush for us?" Yeah, he's playing games with them. So Chacham Ovadia said, "No, listen, if you're hungry, come, I'll take you to my house." The boy was hungry, so he took Chacham Ovadia up on the offer, and he went to his house. He gave him a full meal. After the meal, they talked. After they talked, he went to sleep. And he was there for the Shabbat. And Motzei Shabbat comes, and this young boy, is very brazen, walks over to Chacham Ovadia and says, "Listen, I need some money." So he says, "What do you need money for?" He says, "I want to go to the movies." So Chacham Ovadia gives him the money. He gives him the money. And then the boy goes to the movies, and he needs a place to sleep. He comes back to Chacham Ovadia's house. And so it was like that. Week after week, he would show up on Shabbat, eat, and then take money for the movies. Chacham Ovadia never said anything to him. Eventually, this boy said, I started to, feel that the Chacham Ovadia really cares for me, and how I could be so ungrateful for him and do things that he doesn't like. And he said, I started to learn with Chacham Ovadia. He started teaching me Torah and Mitzvot. I started putting on tefillin. He enrolled me in yeshiva. I became a rabbi. I became a dayan. I worked as a dayan for 25 years. Chacham Ovadia married me off like it was his own child. And he says, as I was growing up in his house, I realized I wasn't the only one like this. Apparently, there was more than 12 boys that Chacham Ovadia took on like his own child. Took them off the street and put them on the right path. And like we said, when we hear these stories, right? She'ikar told Tehem Shel Tzadikim. The main creations of the Tzadikim is the Ma'asim Tovim, the good stories that we hear about them. But why are we hearing that then, the Ma'asim Tovim? For ourselves to do Ma'asim Tovim. We also have opportunities to do this for people, to put them on the right path. Now, of course, we're not Chacham Ovadia. We can't make someone a rabbi or make him a dayan. But we have the opportunity to take someone and show them the right way. We have the opportunity to be friendly to people, to be nice to people. When they see that, it changes their feelings towards Torah. It changes their feeling towards the religious people. It changes their feeling to Hashem. We're walking around with the kippah. Everyone who walks around with the kippah is the representative of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's like you're a walking embassy. You're a representative of Hashem. And as such, it's very important that we pay attention to that we're representatives of Hashem. And we have to do stuff in order to bring people closer and back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Okay, let's move on to another topic on this week's parasha, and this is about Noach. It says in the pasuk that Noach built the whole teva, everything was happening, the rain started, and then it says Vayavo Noach ubanav v'ishto anshe banav ito el hateva mipnei mei hamabul. They came inside because of the waters of the Mabul. What does this mean? They came inside the teva because of the waters of the Mabul. So Rashi tells us. What does Rashi says? Af Noach too, mekatanei amanah haya. He had very little emunah. He had very little belief. Ma'amin ve'eno ma'amin. He believed a Mabul will come, he didn't believe a Mabul will come. He had to be pushed in. She'yavo ha'Mabul. V'lo nichanas l'teva. He didn't go in. Ad she'dechakuhu hamayim. Until the waters forced him to come in. Meaning he kept saying, no, it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen, not going to happen. And so we say he has very little emunah. Now, what's so bad if he didn't go in right away? What's the worst thing about that? Okay, he believed it. He was just waiting for it to happen. He's going to be trapped in there for a long time now. Maybe he just wanted to wait until the last minute.
Doubting Hashem.
Doubting Hashem. Okay. Yeah, 100%. And so here's a story that will help us understand, like Rav Tzion said, how doubting Hashem. There was a town in Europe that was going through a major drought. They had no water. And as the Masechet Ta'anit tells us, when you don't have water in rain, you have to start doing fasts. You have to start doing communal prayers. So they set up a communal prayer, and the rabbi said, "We're going to have it in the field because they don't. Everyone, the whole community is going to come, the whole city. It's not no shul big enough for the whole city. We're going to go to a field. We're all going to go. We're going to pray, and we're going to work on two things. We're working emunah, our belief in Hashem, and we're going to work on achdut, on unity." And so it went out in the whole city. Everybody, even people outside the city, came for that day, for the asifah, for this great meeting. Everybody came together. And they got the greatest chazanim, all the rabbis sitting on the dais over there. Everybody's ready. And the main rebbe who set this all up comes in. He walks into this area, everybody's there. He looks all around, walks over to the event organizers and tell them, cancel it. The asifa is canceled. So all the organizers said, we work so hard, people are here, they're ready to pray. They're ready to daven for rain. And this Chacham, this Rebbe said, everybody came to daven here, but no one really believes that rain is coming today. They said, how can you say that? Everybody came, that means they believe. He says, nobody came with an umbrella. All right? Nobody came with an umbrella. If they truly, deeply believe that it's going to rain after this asifah, they should have prepared themselves to have the rain. So this is very similar to what Tzion said. It's that the lacking of emunah that Noah had, that Noah should have said the Mabul is coming. Of course it's going to be a Mabul today. Hashem said, I have to go inside the Teva. Why am I waiting around? Why am I sticking around? If I really believe the Mabul is coming, I really believe that Hashem said it, then I should have gone into the Teva right away. And sometimes you got to put action into what you believe, right? That was one of the big tests in the Kriyat Yam Suf, was that the Jews had to go in order for the water to split. They had to have that belief and do something, the action of that belief. Same idea. This year, as I was learning about this, I saw something even more interesting. You know how we have in the beginning of the parasha where it says that Noach was a tzaddik tamim haya b'doratav in his generation? So Rashi brings down, Yesh merabotenu, there are from our rabbis, dorshim oto l'shevach, say it's a good thing, that even if he wasn't different, he'd be even better. And there are those, Yesh dortim oto l'ganai, and some learn it for bad, that only in this generation he was good. If he lived in a different generation, he wouldn't be good. And so I saw now, so this pshat seems to be darshim l'ganai. We're darshaning that he didn't have good emunah. I saw this here, another idea, that the fact that Noach didn't walk into the teva, it's actually, you could be darshan that l'shevach, for benefit, for good. How? Amashal. There was a sudat hoda'ah. Person was making a sudat hoda'ah. He was very sick, and he almost died, and now he got better. So he made a sudat hoda'ah, and when he made the sudat hoda'ah, he told everybody. He said, I was laying in the hospital, and a group of doctors came by my bed. They thought I was asleep because my eyes were shut, but I was so sick, so tired, I couldn't open my eyes. And I heard the doctor saying, the doctor said, according to statistics, according to medical knowledge, this man here does not have a chance to live. He's going to die. But I'm certain he will live because he believes that he will live. He has a big will to continue to live. And that will get him through this sickness. He says, I was so sick, so tired, I couldn't open my eyes. But when I heard this, what the doctor said about me, I redoubled my effort to live, and I got through it, and I came home, and Baruch Hashem, I'm making the Sudat Hoda'ah. Not only that, I invited the doctor from that day who said that and saved my life. I invited him here today. And this man introduced the doctor, and the doctor gets up and says, everything he just said is true. I remember that day. I remember what I said. However, the patient doesn't remember. This man doesn't know because his eyes were shut. That when I was saying that he was going to live, I wasn't talking about him. I was talking about the patient in the other bed. I did not believe that he was going to survive. But the fact that he himself believed that he was going to survive after I said that, he ended up surviving. The Ohev Yisrael said, Noah believed in Hashem 100% that the Mabul was coming. But he purposely wanted to believe that the Mabul wouldn't come. Because through that, then maybe the Mabul would not come and everyone would be saved. So, yesh darshim l'shavach, right? You have a way to be darshan, what Noach did in a good light. He believed and he didn't believe. He believed it was coming, but he didn't want to believe it. Because maybe if I don't believe it, maybe it wouldn't come true. Another idea of how to look at what Rashi said over here. Let's move on to our last topic on this week's parasha. The Zohar HaKadosh asks a question. Couldn't Noach get saved? Couldn't Hashem save Noach by just taking him to Eretz Yisrael, where we know the Mabul didn't go, and just leave him there? Why have to put him in a teva? Eretz Yisrael didn't get affected, right? That's the way we learn. Now, Eretz Yisrael stayed good the whole time, nothing happened to it. So you could have taken Noach, put him in Eretz Yisrael, and end the story. You didn't have to make a teva, you didn't have to stay inside for 1,000,000 years, whatever it was, right? So what happened? So the Zohar says that Noach needed to remember, Noach needed to see the punishment, so he would remember what happens to people who don't listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and B, in order to have Hakarat HaTov, in order to thank Hashem for being saved, he has to see what happened. So he needed to see in order to make sure this doesn't happen again, and this way he'll also have, he'll have thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what the Zohar says. The Zohar continues and says that when Noach came out of the teva and he saw the destruction, he said, Ribono shel olam, Master of the world, you are called Rahum, you are called the merciful one, compassionate one. You should have shown mercy towards your creations. You should have not killed them. Why you made so much destruction? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Noach, you foolish shepherd, now you're davening for them? Where were you earlier, where I informed you that there was going to be a Mabul? The tears that you're shedding now, it's a little too late to shed. Because there is a time for prayer. There's a time when a person has to pray. Noach, when he went through the teva, when he saw the punishment, that got him to start feeling. Up until then, he didn't have those feelings. Once the destruction happened, he got those feelings. And now he's saying, Hashem, you shouldn't have killed. But now it's too late. A person has to develop those feelings prior to that. In fact, the Chachamim tell us every time a person cries to go through something bad, he should use those crying and those bad feelings to bring himself closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You have to use your emotions properly. A little too late is something that we have to remember as we go through life. Because Baruch Hashem, you look around, we're healthy, we have koach, we have energy, we are able to do things. And yet, a lot of us, myself included, a lot of times, we don't use our abilities to the fullest. And the reason is for that, and the main reason for that is because we believe we have a lot of time. That's the way people are. People believe we have time, so I'll do it in the future. Do it later. That's what we spoke about earlier. Last week we talked about how zrizit, to be zrizin, person to have zrizut. That's the main important thing in life, is to work as having zrizut. Is to do something quickly. You have an idea, do it. In fact, I saw this week, I forgot where I read it, but the Hatam Sofer writes that if someone tells you to do something and you don't feel ready to do that, you should still do it. Because the fact that someone told you that means Hashem sent it to you because He knows you can do it. So if you're told to do something, even though you think you can't do it, you go ahead and you do it. Because you really have the kohot to do that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be told to do that. All right? Once at work, I met this, she was a vice president in Maimonides, one of the big people there. And so I asked her, how was your career trajectory? How'd you get where you lived? She said, listen, Moshe, I'll tell you the truth. I got here, I have no idea how I got here. Every time someone asked me to do something, I just said yes. Even I had no idea how to do it. I would figure out afterwards how to figure it out, how to do it. And I'll find a lot of people that just someone asked me to do it, I said okay, and I did it. And I ended up being now vice president. She what type of pension and what type of career, what type of job and money she's making. But that's the way, not only in business, not only in life, but especially when it comes to Yehudut, especially when it comes to Judaism. Every time you're asked to do something, you go ahead and you do it, Because if you're being asked to, that means you have the ability to. Yes, afterwards you should prepare, figure it out, do it the right way. But the fact that you were asked to do it, that means you can. We just think we have time, or we push it off, we're lazy, and we don't use our abilities to the fullest. There's a story that's told about Harav Betzalel Zolti, Zecher Tzadik Lebracha, that demonstrates the way that we have to look at the abilities that we have. When Rav Betzalel Zolti was only 10 years old, there was an epidemic of a serious eye disease that was being overrun in Yerushalayim. People were getting sick with this eye disease and they lost their eyesight. Betzalel was a great student of Torah. He did not have a father. His mother was the only one who was raising him. His father was nifter. And one day he comes home from Cheder and his eyes are hurting. His mother is hoping it's just a small infection with a pink eye. But by the next day, his eyes were puffed up, and he was seeing everything blurry. And so they took him to the doctor. The doctor says, "This is it." And within a few days, he's not gonna be able to see anything anymore. So his mother takes him. She puts him in a baby carriage. She takes him, and they go up to Kever Rachel, to Rachel Imenu's kever, and they praying there. She's praying. He's praying. The story goes, Betzalel, 10 years old, gets up and says, Hashem. And he says to Rachel Imenu, listen, I'm prepared to give up my eyesight. So I never will see my mother again. I'll never see my friends. I won't see the food I eat. I won't see the world you created, Hashem. But I'm not ready to give up seeing the Torah. Hashem, I'm still a young boy. I still have so much Torah to learn. Please let me have my eyesight so I continue to learn Torah. That was his prayer. He was crying there. The mother was crying. And finally he went home. The next morning he gets up. His eyes look better. He goes to his mother and he says, Mom, I see much better today. I'm going back to Cheder. She says, No, you can't go right back to Cheder. She says, we have to take you to the doctor to check. He says to his mother, do not check my eyes. We're going straight to Cheder. Hashem gave me back my eyesight. I don't know for how long I'm going to have my eyesight. I'm going right away to learn Torah. Rav Betzalel Zolti, 10 years old, praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu this way, realizing what it means to use your abilities to the fullest. We don't need to be in that predicament to lose something, but we should understand what we do have, the ability to do so much. We have to be taking full advantage of the abilities that we have and doing it right away. And I'll end off with this last story of the Hafetz Chaim. The Hafetz Chaim was called by the Rav of Lida, a neighboring town to Radin, that they needed to build a new mikvah. The mikvah that they had was no longer kosher, and they needed to be a new mikvah. The Rav of Lida tried to collect the funds, and as it happens, wasn't able to collect the funds. So he called the Hafetz Chaim. The Hafetz Chaim comes there, and he tries to collect the funds as well, and it doesn't happen. Hafetz Chaim goes back to his home, and Erev Shabbat, after a whole week passed, Erev Shabbat, he tells his family, I'm going back to the town of Lida. And I'm going back to make sure that it happens. He was already a very old man at this time. And the family tell you can't, Erev Shabbat. He says, I don't care. He goes, and he goes around and gives a speech. He gets everybody involved. They finally collect all the money that they need, and he comes back home. Erev Shabbat. And he said to his family, he said, I could not live with myself if they wouldn't have a mikvah. And I had to take care of it right away. The family said, keep after Shabbat, go. No. When a mitzvah presents itself, you have to do it right away. We don't want to wait till it becomes too late. Baruch Hashem, Hashem gives us the ability to do things. We need to get on them right away. We need to get on them right away and get them done. Be'ezus Hashem, Hashem should give us all the bracha that we all need, everything that we're asking for. Hashem should answer us l'tovah. And Be'ezrat Hashem, looking forward to learning with everyone again next week, Thursday, 8 p.m., 8:30 p.m. Be'ezrat Hashem.